All right, if you're a sales leader, an executive, or, really anyone focused on efficiency, I want you to stop and think about a number for a minute. How many thousands, or maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars does your organization spend a year on? Well, on printing, on those glossy brochures, the slick
Yeah.
white papers, all those detailed price sheets. Now think about the conversion rate on that. Because for most companies, those materials end up right where we don't want them. In hotel trash bins, at the bottom of a tote bag, or, and this is the worst one, being studied by your competition.
And that waste. It isn't just a physical cost. That part's easy to track. It's a strategic liability. We're going way beyond just budgetary concerns today. We're doing a deep dive into the research from the authors of The Sales Experts. They lay out exactly why the traditional way of handing out sales literature is not just inefficient, it's actively counterproductive to achieving real growth.
Yeah, and so our mission today is pretty clear. We want to understand their sales secret. #3.
Ah,
And it's built on a really simple, almost provocative truth. Price lists and brochures. They don't sell. People do. Conversations sell. And using your materials carelessly, you're actually just handing control of the whole sales process right over to the prospect.
or worse, to the competition. Exactly.
Yeah.
This secret forces leaders to look at sales collateral, not as a marketing expense, but as a strategic tool,
Yeah.
a valuable commodity.
Mm.
The materials are really clear on this. It isn't about whether you should have literature. It's about the precise, strategic moment you deploy it. When you treat it like a giveaway, you diminish its value.
Yeah.
You replace a really necessary qualifying discussion with, a simple transaction of paper.
Okay, so let's unpack that core idea then. Who is sales literature actually for? Because the source is extremely specific about this. It draws a really bold line between two groups in your pipeline.
And that distinction is the bedrock of this whole principle. Literature and price lists, they say, are explicitly for customers, not for prospects. And that's a huge mindset shift. A prospect is someone you're still qualifying, right? You're still building trust, still figuring out if they even have the budget and the need. A customer, or a near customer, that's someone who is qualified. They get your value proposition. They're weighing their final decision.
So if they're still just a prospect, leading with that glossy brochure, it feels like you're trying to put the roof on a house before you've even poured the foundation. But wait, doesn't high-quality literature signal prestige? Especially in, say, enterprise sales. If I walk into a meeting with a Fortune 500 prospect and I don't leave a high production piece behind, won't they think I'm unprofessional?
That's a valid fear, and it really speaks to how much we've historically relied on these things. But think about the context. If you deliver a compelling, customized presentation, if you answer all their complex questions, and you establish a clear path to value, the paper is just redundant. The source materials suggest the only acceptable time to leave materials is in a formal presentation. And even then, only if two things have happened. One, a solid persuasive pitch has been delivered. And two, all of the critical questions have been answered.
And the meeting still doesn't close right there on the spot, so you leave it as a reference point for their internal talks,
Yeah,
not as the pitch document itself.
precisely. Because if you give away your full pricing structure, your detailed product specs, too early in the process, you achieve nothing. All you do is make your competition's life easier, and that is the core of what they call the ammunition analogy.
Oh, I love that comparison. Sales literature is ammunition. If you just toss that ammunition, your proprietary info, your supplier costs, all your feature comparison charts, if you just toss it freely into the air, you're just helping others shoot down your own deal.
It's more than just enabling them. You're doing their homework for them. I mean, imagine a competitor gets your pricing sheet 2 weeks before a prospect meets with them. They know exactly where your floor is, where your ceilings are, what key features they need to counter. You've given away all your strategic leverage. So when you use it at the wrong time, collateral either empowers a competitor to undercut you or it just confirms the prospect's disinterest while costing you time and money.
So for the leader who's trying to drive efficiency and, real sales success, the principle here has to be control. It's all about being deliberate.
Control is everything in a complex sale. Everything. The source outlines 3 distinct control points that every salesperson has to internalize. First, you decide when collateral is shared. Not the prospect, not the competitor, you. It's a privilege they earn through qualification. Second, you use it as leverage, not as a giveaway. This means the material always gets you something valuable in return, like deeper access or critical info.
And the third point, this one feels, crucial for managing the pipeline.
The third point is you must tie the literature to a mutual next step. This is the escape hatch avoidance clause. If your team is giving away materials without confirming a clear, defined action, a follow-up meeting, a tech deep dive, a decision date, they're basically giving the prospect permission to just disappear. It kills pipeline momentum. It makes accurate forecasting totally impossible.
That reframes the entire cost, isn't it? The cost isn't just the printing. It's the cost of loss control and just skewed pipeline data. Okay, let's move from theory to where this fails in practice. The trade show trap. Every sales exec has been there authorizing hundreds of boxes of literature for one event, and we all know what it ends up.
Oh, trade shows are the absolute biggest offenders. Careless spending, strategic risk, it's all there. The source's mandate is blunt, but it's necessary. Never hand out literature at trade shows. This is where the sales rep has to stop being a human dispenser and start being a strict qualifier. Their job isn't to move boxes of paper. It's to find high-potential leads.
Okay, but hold on. Let me play devil's advocate here. If I'm an attendee, I walk up to your beautiful, expensive booth and I ask for something to take away, and you say no. Won't I just walk 100 feet to your competitor who will hand me a brochure? Aren't you just losing the lead?
That's the exact friction the salesperson has to manage. And that's why the interaction has to be, carefully scripted. Frankly, if they just walk away, they weren't qualified anyway. Or they were just shopping on paper, which is a race to the bottom you really don't want to win. The smart approach is to engage them in a real substantive conversation first. Ask about their pain points, their current systems, their budget.
So you establish interest and fit before you even address the request for collateral.
Exactly. When they eventually ask for materials, the key is the pivot. The rep explains that they send a professional, personalized follow-up package after the show. This not only signals professionalism, it immediately turns that request into a qualification test.
And this is where the physical materials become currency, right? I'm trading this high-value asset for their contact information.
Absolutely. The rule is you collect the prospect's business card in exchange for that promise to send materials. If a person is genuinely interested, they'll happily make that trade. If they hesitate or they just want a PDF to clutter up their inbox, they were likely never serious. You've just used literature scarcity to vet the lead right then and there.
And this leads to a much, much better follow-up process. We're not just talking about some generic lid list that gets sent to the SDR team.
No, not at all. We are talking about a tracked professional package sent right to their office within days, not weeks. This is so important because it cuts through all the digital noise. A physical package lands on their desk. It signals value, commitment, seriousness. And it's immediately followed up with a phone call referencing the package they just received. You control the tempo, you confirm they're viable, and you've moved them from an anonymous attendee to an active sales cycle.
That's a fundamental change in process. That drives real efficiency. It moves the whole focus from quantity of leads to quality of conversations. But the trade show isn't the only trap. Let's talk about the digital waste, the telephone sales trap.
This is the most common polite exit line in sales, right? Just send me something and I'll look it over. And so many salespeople treat that as a win, a successful call. But the research confirms it's antibody. It's often the end of the line. Sending materials at that point just wastes resources and lets a good prospect off the hook without ever committing to anything.
I hear that phrase multiple times a day. If a salesperson just capitulates and sends the PDF, they've completely missed their moment of leverage. So what's the better response? How do you pivot when you hear, just email me the details?
You have to immediately pivot back to being the source of value, not just the dispatcher of documents. The mindset has to be, I am the expert, not the paper. So a better response is to gently push back and assert your expertise. Maybe say something like, certainly I could send you our general overview, but you mentioned you needed clarity on integration costs. I know our product inside out. Why don't I take 10 seconds right now and answer that specific question for you?
And that forces the prospect to either engage on the real issue or admit they were just using it as a shield to end the call.
Exactly. If they engage, the salesperson has regained control and can use that moment to dig in with more clarifying questions. Are they interested in features? Are they stuck on pricing? Are they actually ready to talk implementation? You use those questions to test their seriousness.
So the qualifying conversation keeps going until you can make a strategic decision.
You decide if the request for literature is authentic, meaning it moves the conversation forward, or if it's just avoidance. The literature should only be sent once you've confirmed they're qualified and ready for those specific details. If you send it too early, you risk giving them just enough information to self-diagnose and maybe buy a cheaper, lower quality solution somewhere else, all because they never heard your full value narrative.
That makes so much sense. It connects resource waste directly back to poor qualifying skills. So, for executives, for leaders driving sales success, what does this aggressive control over materials really mean for their organizations?
It means that controlling your sales ammunition ensures you maintain control of the entire sales process. That's the bottom line. Literature is a tool for closing. It should support a deal that's already in motion, but it must never ever replace the hard work of actually selling. For leadership, the analysis shows that minimizing literature waste is fundamentally a strategy issue, not just, a budgeting exercise.
Right. So if a team is overly reliant on paper, it's a massive signal, a signal that they're uncomfortable or maybe just unskilled at having those difficult qualifying conversations that actually push a deal forward.
Absolutely. By making materials scarce and valuable and only deploying them when a prospect has earned them, you force your team to prioritize high-quality conversations and strict process. And that discipline, that comes from controlling your assets.
Yeah.
That is the real driver of predictable revenue and sustained growth.
So if conversations are what truly sell, not paper, then every sales leader needs to ask a pretty tough question based on these source materials. Is your team currently treating literature as high-value support for closing deals? Or are they using it as a convenient crutch to avoid the difficult but necessary conversations that get serious results?
That's a question to bring up at the next strategy meeting. And if you want to dive deeper into these strategies for maximizing your team's efficiency and control, we really encourage you to explore the work of the sales experts.
Controlling the flow of your information means controlling your results. You can find more insights just like these by visiting thesalesexperts.com. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.